Hi everyone, this is Christy Ray, and I'm here to share another quick tip video. This time I'm going to talk about how to optimize your website. Now, optimization is very important, not just for your user experience, because when users go to your website, if it takes several seconds to load, they might just hit the back button. They might just not even wait. I've seen some websites take 10, 15 seconds to load the first time. That's not acceptable. You want your website to load within about 2 seconds, close to that if possible. The other reason that the performance matters is search engine optimization. If your website isn't loading quickly, especially on mobile, then you're going to have some trouble with SEO. It's going to ding your SEO scores. So we want to make sure that it's loading as fast as possible. So I'm going to show you on my screen a few things that you can do to check your performance, first of all, and then optimize the performance if it needs optimization. So one of the tools that I use to do this is a website called Gtmetrix. So if you go to gtmetrix.com, you can type in the URL that you want to analyze. So I'm going to type in pongos.com. And we're going to analyze it. We're going to see how fast it is. Now, we just relaunched the pongos.com website, and so I've already done a lot of optimization for it. So this should be a pretty good score. We're going to see. I haven't optimized it completely, but we should get close to 100%. Let's see what we get. So this takes a second. It's analyzing it. And notice that it's doing it from Vancouver, Canada. So that's the closest location. Okay, here we go. So you can see my performance score is 99%. That's great. I got a Gtmetrix grade of 8. That means that my website over here is loading right now. And this can vary. So like if I retest it, I might get a lower or a higher score because it depends on how fast the network is running. But you can see that it loaded in less than a second. So almost half a second, or a little bit more than half a second. Now, if you get a good score, you want to retest it and make sure that the score is still good. If you get a bad score, you also want to retest it because, again, the network can affect the score. So if your server is running slow in 1 second, it may not be loading slow in another second. So always retest it at least a couple of times to make sure that the score is pretty accurate. And you can kind of use an average of the scores when you do that. All right, so it's loading again. It's almost done. And let's see what I get this time. Oh, it's up to 100%. So as you saw, this time it loaded in a little bit shorter time, 570 milliseconds. So that's pretty good. Now, Gtmetrix is going to not just give you a score, but if you scroll down a little bit, it will tell you some issues that you can fix. So for example, serve static assets with an efficient cache policy. You got this. So it's loading up the Google Analytics. I have no control over that. Some of the things you can fix, some of them you can't. So here we got eliminate render blocking resources. So if I look at that, it's telling me that my jQuery may be contributing to this issue. Now, I will warn you, a lot of the recommendations they're going to give here are going to be pretty technical. So you may need to talk with a web developer to help you figure out what you can do with this. But one of the issues that is often reported when I look at clients' websites, when they're saying, hey, my website's loading really slow, one of the top issues that I see is massive images, non-optimized images. So that's part of what I'm going to show you in just a little bit about how to fix. Optimize your images every time you use them on your website. If you're not doing that, you are making your website slow. So always optimize your images. Now, another tool that you can use to check the performance, and I will tell you that I already know that my mobile performance is going to be a little bit lower here, but Google has a page speed insights tool. It's pagespeed.web.dev. And just like with Gtmetrix, you type in the URL. So I'm going to type in pongos.com, and you're going to analyze it. And again, you might get a bad score one time, and then you analyze it again, and you get a decent score because it depends on the network at the time. So, check this a few times. I'll analyze it. Oh, I got an unknown error. Let me try clicking analyze again, see if it goes through this time. And there we go. So you can see my performance here is only 49. But this is for mobile. So I'm going to talk about what I can fix in just a minute. But if I look at desktop, you can see it's 99%. So that's pretty good. It's loading pretty quickly on mobile. Now, if I go, sorry, on desktop, it's loading pretty quickly on desktop. Now, if I go back to mobile, we can see here, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. It's looking at it with slow G4 throttling. So this is the simulated, if somebody was looking at the website using 4G and they were using Moto G4, so it's emulating all of this, this is what they would get. So it would load, it would take about 3.1 seconds to load, 7.1 seconds before somebody could actually interact with the page. That's pretty slow. So I want to increase that speed if I can. I want to try to get the performance a little bit higher. So if I scroll down here, I can see some issues. You can see they give you opportunities instead of listing issues, but they give you some opportunities for improvement. So you can see here, reduce unused CSS. So if I click on the little arrow here, I can see some of the CSS that is being used that I may not need. So you can see here, again, some of this is pretty technical. You might need to talk with your web developer. But again, one of the biggest issues that you're usually going to see here is your images. It's the images are too big. So you want to optimize your images. And I will show you how to do that in a minute. But one of the things that I see here is it's not using this CoBlocks CSS file. So I can go into the website and check to see if I'm actually using the CoBlocks. It's a plugin. So if I go into my WordPress site, I can go into my plugins and let's see if I'm actually using it. Let's see here. Give me a second here. It's going to load. So let's see, CoBlocks. It's activated. I don't know that I'm actually using it. So I'm just going to, just for testing purposes, I will reactivate it in a minute, but I'm going to deactivate it for right now. And let's just skip and deactivate. All right. Now I'm on a hosting provider that caches my website, which means that once I deactivate a plugin, in order for that to take effect, I have to clear the cache. So I've just deactivated that. I'm also using a caching plugin as well. So for my caching plugin, I'm going to clear the cache there. And I'm also going to clear the cache on the server. So I've cleared the cache on the plugin, and I'm also going to go back into my dashboard and clear the cache on the server. So let's clear the cache there as well. All right. So now that both caches are cleared, I'm going to retest. So I'm going to go back up here and analyze this again. And it may not be completely cleared out. Sometimes it takes a little while. So you might want to wait a few minutes to retest, but we're going to see if that improved my score at all by turning off that plugin. So let's see what we get. Diagnosing. All right, let's give it a few seconds here. Let's see. Oh, look, that just bumped up the performance. It was 49%. Now it's 58%. Still not great, but it's better. So you can see reduce unused CSS, that cut the time down, and you can see that CoBlock stuff is not in there anymore. Now, don't just willy-nilly go and turn off plugins. You want to make sure that you're not actually using, and this is for a WordPress site, you want to make sure that you're not actually using those plugins. If you're using a content management system like Squarespace or Wix or Weebly, you might not have any control over this reducing unused CSS. So just be aware of that. Now, another thing that I've got here, it says reduced unused JavaScript. So let's take a look at that. It's telling me that I can remove this script. I probably can't. That's actually, actually I can for the home page. But I'm not going to because I know we're actually using Divi elsewhere in the site. So I'm not going to turn that off right now. So you do need to know some technical stuff about your website. So again, talk with a web developer for this. Now, if you are using WordPress, because that's my expertise, I can talk about WordPress optimization especially, then as I already mentioned, you want to make sure that you're optimizing your images. So to optimize your images in WordPress, I use an image optimization plugin. So I'm going to go to my plugins. And if we look under my installed plugins, let's get in here. I am using a lovely little plugin. Where is it? Tiny PNG, there we go. Tiny PNG, JPEG PNG, and WebP image compression. It's a free plugin. You can install it. When you activate it, you do need to add a license to it. You have to activate it through Tiny PNG. You can get up to 500 image optimizations for free. But what that does is when I upload an image, it automatically will optimize it for me. It goes through and compresses it as much as possible, as long as it's a JPEG, PNG, or WebP image, which are really the only image types that you're going to use on your website. I mean, you might use a GIF, but it doesn't optimize that. So anyway, if I go into my media library over here on the left, if I go into my library, I can see, so this image, which is the hero image for my website, has already been compressed. If I look at the details, you can see that the original was 187.9K, and it compressed it for the different sizes. So it did a pretty good job of compressing these images. Now, if I go into an image that was not compressed, so for example, this Adobe stock was not compressed, I can click on compress. And as long as I have compressions left, remember I get 500 free per month. As long as I have 500, or as long as I have compressions left, it's going to compress those images for me. So this may take a few seconds, but after it's done compressing it, then the file should be a little bit smaller. So you want to use something like this if you can. If you have a lot of images, you're uploading a lot of blog posts with a lot of images or galleries or something like that, you may want to pay for the plugin. It's not very expensive. It can actually run while it's doing that. But if I go into the settings, tiny PNG, JPEG, PNG, and WP image, you can see it's connected. I've got my API key. I'm on a free plan, and I've got 175 compressions left this month. If you are compressing a lot of images, you'll want to upgrade your account. It's only a few, like a fraction of a cent per compression. So you're not spending a lot of money to compress your images. It's worth it with the amount of size that you're going to save, keeping those images smaller. Now I'm going to go into a website. So if you're using Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, or something like that, and you're getting those image compression, optimize your images as your opportunities or your image or your top issues, you can use tinypng.com to optimize those images. You can just drop up to 20 images in there. They can be a maximum of 5 megs each. If they're larger than that, you might need to use Photoshop or something like that. So if you're downloading the images from a stock photo resource like Pexels or Unsplash or something like that, you might need to resize them or download the correct size in the first place. So you always want to make sure that the images are sized correctly and then also optimized. Now, again, because I'm using WordPress, I mentioned this earlier, I'm using a caching tool. It's actually an optimization tool called WP Rocket. It is a premium plugin, not free, not super expensive, but I think it's worth it. You have to check with your hosting provider to make sure that it's supported. Some hosting providers won't let you use plugins like WP Rocket. So check with your hosting provider, make sure that it's not disallowed on your hosting provider. For this website, I'm using WP Engine, and I know it's allowed, so we're good. I believe it's also allowed on Flywheel. I'm not sure if it's allowed on GoDaddy if you're using that. I don't recommend GoDaddy as a hosting provider anyway, so your mileage may vary with that. So I have an Infinite account, so I can use this on all of my client websites, and I do. But you can see here there are some options, some basic options. So like in my basic cache options, enable caching for mobile devices. So it speeds up your website a little bit for your mobile visitors. So they're going to get a cached version of your website. You can also enable caching for logged in users. I don't usually turn that in, but you can also say how long stuff is cached for, how many hours is it cached for. File optimization, you can minify your CSS, and you can see that removes all of the white space and comments. That's going to reduce the file size of your CSS. So if you've got one of the issues that gets reported is that you've got a large CSS file, you can minify that CSS. Now, another thing you can do is combine your CSS files. This may or may not be a good thing to do, but you can try it. So you can turn this on. if you get any errors, so it does tell you check it. If you get any errors, you may need to deactivate it. This can cause issues. I usually also minify my JavaScript file, so it goes through and in the cache, it will get rid of any white space or comments to make the file size smaller. You can also combine your JavaScript files after you minify them. But again, this can cause issues. So like it says, it can break things. In my experience, on some sites, this will break things. So you do need to be very careful using that. I usually also load my JavaScript deferred, except for jQuery. So jQuery is important. You want to keep it not deferred because it usually is pretty actively used with a lot of layout things. So I don't recommend that. You might be able to also delay the JavaScript execution. I don't turn this on for the Pongo site. I did turn it on. I tested a few things. There were some issues, so I turned it back off. So it really just depends on your website. So you always want to, when you're doing these things, you want to test them out, see if they work. After you play around with the settings in here, you're going to go through and clear the cache and then reload the cache or preload the cache after you make any changes so that you can check accurately. Now, another thing they've got here is for media, they've got the ability to lazy load, which means that it doesn't actually load the image until it's about to enter the viewport. So until it's about to actually enter the screen. So that's going to make your website faster initially. So really, like on the Pongos website, you can see that this is the only image. Well, actually, these three images here. So it only needs to load the logo, this image here, which is very optimized, and then these three images before the page will render. And that's going to increase my page speed. It's going to make it faster to load. If I scroll down, it doesn't actually load this image until this is close to being loaded in the viewport. And it doesn't load these images, again, until I need them. And then this image down here at the bottom. So it's going to, and this image also, it's going to improve my page loading speed when I do that. So that's good to do. You can also enable it for iframes and videos. That can also speed up your load time. It's up to you. You can see here, you can replace the YouTube iframe with a preview image. So that means that it's going to put a preview image there instead of the video. So it's up to you. I didn't enable that, or actually I did enable it, tested it, had some issues. So I unenabled it, or I unchecked it. And then another thing that a lot of the page speed measuring tools like to say is you need to have the image dimensions in there. So that's actually a little bit of HTML code. And I turned on the missing width and height attributes, and that helps prevent any layout shifts. And it does improve the experience for your users. So you always want to improve your user experience. So the faster the page loads, the faster the site loads, the better. There are more things in here that you can play with. So you can see they do have an image optimization tool, Imagify. I personally prefer the Tiny PNG over Imagify, but you can see if I was to install it. So if I click on it, oh, I shouldn't have clicked on that. It's gonna actually go through and install it. But if you were to install it, it's just another tool that you can use. So you have to sign up for it. It is free. But in order to use it, again, like with the Tiny PNG, then you have to pay if you go over a certain number of images. So I'm not going to install it right now because I've already got Tiny PNG. So not going to install it. So the other thing I want to mention before I finish this video, if you are measuring only your homepage, like right now you can see I only measured my homepage, you're missing out. So I need to also load things like my portfolio. I need to see how fast that loads. So I'm going to copy the URL for my portfolio. I haven't optimized this yet. And I'm going to go back to Gtmetrix and I'm going to analyze my portfolio page. So let's see how that looks. It should be a lower score because I've got more images on it and I may have to optimize some of them. Again, we just launched this yesterday, so I haven't really finished optimizing it. We usually optimize as much as we can before we launch it, but because we keep things behind a password, we can't optimize everything because some of these tools like the Page Speed Insights don't let you optimize behind a password. So Let's see what I get. Oh, that's pretty good. So 93%, still pretty good. Let's see if it's giving me, you can see, okay, properly sized images. So that's something that I might need to do. I didn't properly size the images. So something that I can fix there. Yeah. So, and then you would also do the same thing on page speed insights. So I'm going to analyze that URL. So you want to try to analyze as many pages on your website as you can to see if they're all optimized. You don't want to just optimize the homepage and then just leave the rest of them up to chance. So optimize as many as you can. I hope you found this useful. I will. Oh, that's not too bad. There we go. 69. That's actually pretty good. Let me see what it is for desktop. 99 for desktop. So pretty good. It does need some optimization for mobile. So I will tweak that a little bit. But so again, I hope you found this useful. Optimize your websites if you can. If you are having trouble with that, let me know. You can just comment on this video and we can take a look at your website. But I hope you found this useful, and I will see you again soon.